Nobody warned me that choosing the wrong man would cost me 3 years of my life, a therapist, and the ability to trust my own gut. I grew up watching my mom make coffee every morning before my dad even woke up. She'd set it on his side of the table, go back to the kitchen, and start on breakfast. I thought that was love. I thought that was what it looked like, one person quietly taking care of another. No drama, no noise. I filed that away somewhere in the back of my head and didn't think about it again for a long time. When I was 16, I had my first real boyfriend. His name was Derek, and he was the kind of guy every girl in 10th grade wanted to talk to. Tall, played varsity, had this way of walking into a room like he already knew he owned it. I remember the first time he texted me, I stared at my phone for probably 4 minutes before I answered. I wanted to seem unbothered. I was extremely bothered. We dated for almost a year, and the whole time I was so focused on the fact that he chose me that I never stopped to ask whether I actually liked who he was. He was impatient. He talked over people. He made little comments about what I wore and then acted like I was being sensitive when I brought it up. But he was cute and popular, and when we walked into places together, I felt like I had passed some kind of test. That's a terrible reason to be with someone. I know that now. I did not know that then. After Derek, there was a stretch of time where I dated casually and told myself I was being smart, being selective. What I was actually doing was chasing a feeling. I wanted to feel chosen again. I wanted that specific electricity of someone impressive deciding you were worth their attention. So I kept gravitating toward the same type, confident, a little unavailable, good at saying the right thing without necessarily meaning it. I was 20 when I met Jason. Jason was different from Derek on the surface. He was older, had a real job, knew how to cook actual meals and not just microwave things. He talked about the future like it was something he was building, not just waiting for. I was impressed. My friends were impressed. My mom liked him. Everything checked out on paper, and that should have been my first clue that I was evaluating him like a resume instead of a person. We moved in together after 8 months because it seemed like the logical next step. That phrase, the logical next step, is how you know someone is moving through a relationship on autopilot. Nothing about being with another human being should feel like a logical next step. It should feel like a decision you keep making every day because you want to, not because the timeline says it's time. Living with Jason taught me things about myself I hadn't wanted to look at. I learned that I had been shrinking, not dramatically, not in ways anyone else would notice, but slowly making myself smaller and quieter, so there was less of me to clash with him. I stopped bringing up things that bothered me because his version of a conversation about feelings was to get very calm and very logical and explain to me why my feelings didn't make sense, and somehow I'd always end up apologizing. He never yelled, he never said anything outright cruel, he was just consistently, quietly right, and I was consistently, quietly wrong, and after a while I started to believe it. That relationship ended when I was 23, and it took me longer to recover from it than from anything obviously bad that had ever happened to me, because there were no villains, just two people who were wrong for each other, and one of them, me, who took way too long to admit it. I spent about a year genuinely single after Jason, not dating apps, not casual things, just alone and trying to figure out what I actually wanted versus what I had been told to want. This is where I think most people skip a step. They go from one relationship to the next without ever sitting with themselves long enough to get honest. I am not saying everyone needs a year, but I needed it. I needed to notice what I was like when nobody was watching, what I cared about when I wasn't performing caring about the right things, what kind of tired I got, and what kind of energized. I started paying attention to small things, whether I felt drained or full after spending time with people, whether someone's presence made me more or less like myself. If you've made it this far and you're in that place right now, trying to figure out what real actually looks like, go ahead and subscribe. I'm going to keep talking about this stuff and I don't sugarcoat it. I met my husband, Marcus, at a work event I almost didn't go to. I was tired, I'd had a long week, I almost texted my friend that I was skipping it. I went because she guilt-tripped me, and I am grateful for her every single day. Marcus was not the most noticeable person in the room. He wasn't working the crowd. He wasn't performing. He was standing near the back, talking to someone, and laughing at something, and the laugh was completely unself-conscious, like he wasn't checking to see if anyone was watching him laugh. I noticed that. I filed it away. We talked for maybe 40 minutes that night, and he asked me more questions than any man had asked me in years. Not surface stuff, he actually listened to the answers and responded to what I said, not to what he'd planned to say next. He remembered things. 3 weeks later, when we got coffee, he mentioned something small I'd said at the first event, and I thought, this person was actually present. That sounds like a low bar. It is not a low bar. Presence is rare. Here is what I have learned about how to choose. Not rules, not a checklist, just what I actually know from having gotten it wrong before. Watch how he treats people who can do nothing for him. The waiter, the guy at the parking garage. People who are not impressive, not useful, not watching. That version of a person is the real version. Everything else is front. Notice whether you feel more like yourself or less like yourself after time with him. I cannot stress this enough. Some people expand you, and some people slowly compress you, and it doesn't always feel bad while it's happening. It can feel like love. It can feel like you're just being flexible, being easy, being a good partner. Pay attention to whether you are still the same size you were 6 months in. Look at how he handles being wrong, not whether he's wrong. Everyone is wrong. That's not the test. The test is what he does with it. Does he get defensive? Does he reframe it until you're the problem? Or does he just say, yeah, I got that wrong, and move on without making it a whole thing? Marcus has never once in 4 years made me feel stupid for pointing something out. That is not normal. That should be normal. It is not. Ask yourself if you like him, not just love him. Those are different things. Loving someone is almost involuntary after a while. Liking someone, genuinely enjoying who they are, finding them interesting, wanting to tell them things, that has to be chosen and maintained. I like Marcus. I like talking to him. I like that he has opinions about things and isn't afraid to be wrong about them. I like that he's the same person at a fancy dinner as he is on a Wednesday night eating cereal on the couch. There's this moment I think about sometimes. We'd been together maybe 6 months, and I was having a hard week. Nothing dramatic, just the accumulated weight of things. I wasn't crying. I wasn't even fully letting on how I felt. I was just quieter than usual. And Marcus didn't try to fix it or ask me to explain or make it about whether he'd done something. He just sat next to me and put on a show I liked and made sure my glass was full and let me be tired without making me perform okayness. I thought about my mom putting coffee on my dad's side of the table every morning. I thought, oh, this is that. This is the quiet, undramatic thing I watched growing up and couldn't name. I'm not saying my marriage is perfect. I'm not saying Marcus is perfect. What I'm saying is that I picked someone who makes me more myself, not less. Someone whose goodness shows up in the small moments when there's nothing to gain from being good. Someone who I like, not just love, on the days when love is a decision and not a feeling. I got lucky in the sense that I met him. I don't think I got lucky in the sense of recognizing him. I think I recognized him because I had finally done enough work to know what I was looking for. That's the part nobody tells you. You can't choose well until you know yourself well enough to know what well even means for you. If you're out there trying to figure that out, I promise it's worth the time it takes.